about unlocking your wellness potential, specifically about inflammatory triggers that might be stealing your vitality. And I think this is a big issue. It's something that your regular doctor might not even fully understand. It took me many years of education after the fact in integrative medicine to kind of get this whole picture. So let's dig in a little bit more.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What are all those, your titles? What are they named?
Oh,
You
thanks.
said MD.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy, but I'm
No.
just always so curious.
So I don't know how to go back, but right after my name it says FAAP, which is I'm a pediatrics. I'm boarded in pediatrics, and the second one was boarded in integrative medicine.
Okay.
So I have two boards that I maintain, and here kind of our question before of who's had chronic illness. It doesn't discriminate. It can be anyone in your family. It can be any one of your friends. It can be your parents, your children. And if you aren't having a chronic issue right now, then you certainly might be caring for somebody or supporting somebody with one. So it's tremendously common. You are not alone. The CDC data, which is the Center for Disease Control, says that 6 out of every 10, or 60% of adults in the US have a chronic condition, and 4 out of 10 have 2 or more chronic conditions. And like I said, the percentages for children are at least 30%. So just to give you a little bit more of a background about myself, I'm going to share about some of my health challenges. So as a small child, I had rashes on my hands very frequently. I had excessive sweating, and my friends would tell me they didn't want to hold hands with me. I had frequent belly pains, and as a teenager, I had acne, headaches, and PMS. We sort of think that maybe these are kind of normal things, but really these are all evidence that there was inflammation in my body even as young as an elementary school student. So in college, I pushed through. I did complete enlisted basic training as a junior in college. I worked a full-time college load and a part-time research assistant at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda. Things weren't going perfectly, but you were young and you just pushed through. The medical school stress was another story. I started to have other health issues like high blood pressure, night sweats, and really severe reflux or heartburn. I also started to have some mood issues. And then in residency, things just keep getting better. You don't sleep, at least before I was sleeping. So the work weeks were 80 hours. For months at a time, you would be on call every third night. So my lifestyle habits were just terrible. At that point, I didn't even know what healthy eating was. It was whatever I could get on the run. And the medications for my reflux and depression didn't really feel like they were working. But again, we press on, especially those of us who feel a calling to help other people. We tend to put ourselves last. Then I graduated from residency. I'm going to get a new job. Things are going to be so much better. I'm going to have a say in my hours, and I don't have to do the school thing anymore. But that really wasn't the case. So I took a job, and I was working mostly nights. So again, no sleep. I took care of sick children, well newborns, and attended deliveries in the hospital. And hospital work is a little bit stressful in itself. And I had 3 kids of my own during this time. So, a common American way of life is that we're burning the candle on both ends, and most of us, I think, can sympathize with this a little bit. But it's some of us can recognize maybe before it reached that screeching halt point. But unfortunately, the screeching halt came for me in a different way. So my kids were 2, 4, and 6 at the time, and we decided to hire someone to paint our kitchen cabinets. And I really wasn't very educated on toxins at that point. And we didn't do our due diligence about asking him what types of paint he was going to use. We stayed out of the house for more than 12 hours. All the windows and doors were open. We planned to sleep in an area of the house away from the kitchen, but it was still too much for me. The intense fatigue set in within a few days to a week and lasted quite a while. So the paint fumes, the toxins there, the VOCs were that last straw on the camel's back, so to speak, and my body could not keep up with the stress. I had lots of inflammatory issues brewing over the years, and finally it was just too much. I was the breadwinner, but I really felt like I was completely losing. I couldn't spend any time with my children. I was literally sleeping or at work for months on end. And my husband said, what is going on here? This is not normal. So I went to my local family doctor just thinking, maybe it was something easy. It was my thyroid. At that time, not even really understanding that there was a direct correlation with the toxins. But she thought that it was probably because I had 3 young kids and I was working nights, and she didn't really have a lot of solutions for me. She said, well, maybe you go back on your antidepressants and we'll see how things go. But at that time, I had been doing functional medicine training for about the last year, and I knew that there was other answers and other ways that we could investigate things. So I reached out to a few of my colleagues in functional medicine, and they helped me to ask these questions and, more importantly, answer these questions. What was my body trying to tell me? What were my inflammatory triggers? Why was my body doing this? And what could I do to turn it around? So from an inflammation perspective, there were several things that were triggering things, not only at that moment that I had an issue, but all of the other things that had been going on for years that needed to be addressed as well. So there was too many toxins for sure. I later found out that I do have some genetic predisposition to have a sluggish liver, so I just need to be more careful about the toxins that I'm exposed to. I definitely had some food issues, both some food allergies and food sensitivities. I had, for a long time, been making poor choices with food. And that last year, again, with my integrative training, we had a large garden and we were definitely changing things. But I think the toll of a poor diet over years led to having nutrient deficiencies. And of course, as you could see, my stress was high for quite a long time. With their help, we did some lab work and also just kind of discussing through the timeline of how things all happened. And I began to make better choices. I began to make sure I was getting better hydration, that I was repleting those vitamins and minerals that I needed. When you're under chronic stress, it's really common that you require more of certain nutrients. So more magnesium, more B vitamins, more vitamin C, and needing to be mindful of the amounts of those that you're getting. I started to eat more clean. We started to garden and can our own salsa and do those fun things that allow you to eat the most nutritious food possible. We changed all the cleaning products, all the soaps, your laundry detergent, your shampoos. We changed all of our products in our home to be more green cleaners and green products. I started to use some herbs and essential oils to support my immune system. I was finally able to exercise again, get out of that chronic fatigue slump. And I was able to get back to vibrant health. In fact, I feel better now than I did when I was 20, which is really exciting. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was really powerful. This is a real life changer. It really works. Natural medicine is amazing. I found hope there, and the change, although the changes, some of them might have been dramatic, I did them slowly over time, and they were doable and they were empowering. I was able to achieve true healing by giving myself that basis of nutrition. And more importantly, when we find our best selves and we feel good, we're able to fulfill our purpose, whatever that might be. Oh, sorry, maybe I'll go back and talk about those pictures just a little bit. So, as I feel good now, what are some things that I'm able to do? This little guy, our fourth child I had when I was close to 40, and actually was an easier pregnancy than all the other ones. And then I have the energy and the interest to do other things and be a part of bigger things like supporting doTERRA's healthcare initiative and being on their medical advisory board. So let's get back to how conventional medicine is going to look at some of these pieces of the puzzle. So this is the CDC data again. They tell us that the key lifestyle risks for chronic disease are tobacco, alcohol, so they're here. Tobacco, alcohol, lack of exercise, and poor nutrition. So I think they probably are getting somewhere with poor nutrition, but their education on what we should do about it is lacking for sure. The lack of exercise, sure, that's a big one. But the interesting there is most people that I see feel bad enough that they can't exercise, or they certainly can't do it in a really robust way.
Is that in order? Worst to?
No, I don't believe so. I think this is a random order. And the interesting thing here is tobacco and alcohol. I would say 99.9% of my patients do not consume alcohol or tobacco, and they still have chronic illness. So we're definitely missing something here.
Yeah.
So again, these are the common chronic diseases: heart disease, cancer, lung disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and kidney disease that they are saying are huge, 6 out of 10 Americans. But they're not even mentioning autoimmunity, which is millions and millions and millions of people, and chronic fatigue, which is a close cousin to autoimmunity. So it's kind of an interesting puzzle. They're definitely missing some big key parts of the puzzle. The other, and I alluded to this in the beginning, that a lot of times our medical school training is not sufficient. We're given maybe 1 or 2 days of nutrition, which is just crazy. That's maybe good for some medical schools. So the core foundations of health are not taught. Medical school education is typically this set of symptoms lead to this diagnosis, lead to this prescription. So the whole prevention and wellness model is really lacking. So I would say, in what I do, we're more so looking at I don't feel good-itis. It might not be a disease name that we're talking about. It just might be fatigue. It just might be your muscles feel weaker, or there's just something not right. And unfortunately, our modern day healthcare system is not equipped to deal with that, mostly because our medical school education does not provide us with that wellness background. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of good things that our medical system does for emergencies and trauma care. We're the top of the world, but we're really failing at prevention and wellness strategies. I think part of what we forget, especially when we're here in the grips of something yucky, that the body can heal. And I think that is a really motivating, powerful factor to remember. We just have to, like I said earlier, give the body the right nudge in the right direction to get there. So going back to some of that CDC data, those are those main chronic illnesses that we're talking about. They don't mention that any of these are inflammatory conditions. They're all inflammatory. And I put some really important ones down here at the bottom. Depression is inflammatory. Anxiety is inflammatory.
They don't
Sure.
mention the liver, which causes all of that.
Right. Yeah, definitely they're missing some bigger pieces of the puzzle here. I would agree.
Yeah.
But I think these are some surprising ones, that depression, anxiety, addiction, and autoimmunity are all inflammatory conditions. So what do we have to go back to? We have to go back to understanding the immune system and inflammation. So the interesting thing about inflammation is that it's not all bad. We do need some. You have to heal that paper cut. You have to heal that twisted ankle. You you respond to that cold. If your body doesn't respond to a cold, you're not going to get better, and it requires some inflammation to actually get over that cold. So it's about immune regulation. So you need it, but you need the right amount at the right time, and the immune system perfectly does that when it has all the right tools. So, over the years of looking at lots and lots and lots of blood work samples and kind of guiding patients through the wellness strategies, there's 4 main things that have really stuck out to me as things that we can address. And they would be toxins, food issues, infections, and stress. And we're going to go through each of those in a little bit more detail. So toxins, and this is probably not an exhaustive list. This is just maybe the ones that caught my attention and came to my mind first. But we definitely want to think about heavy metals, pesticides, airborne pollution, and that's things inside of the house and outside of the house. So you might have VOCs from things like paint inside the house. You might have air pollution, exhaust outside of the house. Fire retardants can certainly be on clothing and on furniture. Endocrine disruptors are many things, including plastics. And some things we don't think about. Most cities have fluoride in the water, and fluoride is definitely considered a toxin. And a lot of water systems, a lot of fancy water tests can actually pick up trace amounts of pharmaceutical drugs in the regular water. So really good to say that using a water filter can be helpful. And this is not a list to scare you, but just to be a little bit more familiar with everything that our body does every day. Our lungs are breathing in some of these things. If we're eating them or are consuming them anyway, our liver has to process them. So it's good to understand the whole process of the detoxification pathways. So it's the lungs, the liver, the skin, the lymph system, the kidneys, all of those are going to work together, and certainly the digestive tract as well. The second category of inflammation is foods, and there's actually several different ways that this can come about. You can certainly have food allergies, which is your traditional fast inflammation reaction like hives, anaphylaxis, swelling, lip swelling or mouth swelling, something that you usually would know pretty quickly, and you would be able to identify the food relatively easily if it's a really strong trigger. The different kind of food response, and the one that you measure here in the blood is called an IgG reaction. This is called a sensitivity or an intolerance, and the difference is that it causes inflammation very slowly. So you might see the inflammation impact of that 1 to 4 days later. So if it's 4 days later, a lot of times you don't remember what you ate a few days ago, and maybe there was a lot of things happening in between, and it's hard to tease things out. So usually you can figure out the allergies, but oftentimes we have to look to the blood work to figure out the sensitivities. Another way, if you didn't want to do labs, is to do an elimination and challenge. If you take something out for 3 weeks and then put it back in and see how you feel. Processed foods are another one. There's so many chemicals, preservatives, sugar, artificial colors, all of those things are highly toxic to the body. Hydrogenated fats are highly processed fats that our body has no idea what to do with. And our cell membranes are made of fats, so it really confuses the body and doesn't allow our cells to work properly when we have a lot of those. I think the factoid there is that eating some yucky hydrogenated fats can take your body even a year to process just one amount or one serving. And then the last two there, sugar. So the interesting thing, there is no test to say if you have a sugar sensitivity or a sugar intolerance, because it disrupts all of our immune systems. It is not discriminatory. And certainly I'm talking about added sugar, processed sugar. Dates are fine, honey's fine, maple syrup's fine, fruit is fine in the right quantities. You wouldn't sit down and eat 4 bananas or 5 mangoes, but normal serving sizes of fruit is certainly a good thing. So added sugar is the research shows will completely suppress your immune system for at least 4 hours. So I don't know if you've ever been to the point with your inflammation where maybe you had sugar and then felt really, really bad within the 4 hours after that. That's your immune system kind of trying to recover after that insult. And then the last thought there is that the bad fats and the high sugar can certainly lead to fatty liver, which means that the body is keeping triglycerides in the liver and not allowing the liver to detoxify as it should, which is just a 1-2 punch when one of our other inflammatory triggers is toxins. There is an epidemic of fatty liver in the United States. There was a researcher in Arizona that I spoke to in December, actually at the doTERRA medical symposium, and he had gotten liver biopsies from a hospital because he wanted to do some testing on liver cells to be able to know what was helping the best. His particular interest was in fatty liver, and he said that every single sample that he got, even if it was supposed to be a healthy liver, had fatty liver.
No.
So we're completely underestimating how much fatty liver is in the United States.
I have that. It's just insulting. Like, and then what did they tell me to do? I talked to you about it. They told me to go on a diet.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been dieting for half my life,
Right.
crying out loud.
Yes.
So, anyway, so what do you do?
Well, how do we get some of the bad fats out? So certainly supporting detox, supporting inflammation, and making sure your blood sugar is managed. There are all kind of key pieces of that puzzle. And there are herbs and other things that can kind of jumpstart that process. But you're right, it can be a challenging, I would say the first goal is let's do what we can to prevent it. And if you have it, then we can certainly work backwards as well.
Well, we're going to talk about it.
The third inflammatory trigger is infections, and I know some of this writing might be a little bit on the smaller side, but we're really talking about all comers as far as infection goes: bacteria, viruses, yeast, mold, and I put some examples there. They're really the body doesn't really discriminate. Almost any type of infection can become chronic in the right circumstance. I've had some interesting experience with strep, especially in pediatrics, where different autoimmune conditions like PANS or PANDAS, which are almost on the level of a psychiatric autoimmunity, where the strep actually looks a whole lot like brain tissue, and you get inflammation in the brain, and so it can be pretty significant, and certainly recognizing that a chronic strep infection is a part of that is a huge support to the immune system. And we have different types of staph that can be particularly irritating. MARCON stands for multi-antibiotic resistant coag-negative staph, and that's particularly common in the nose. So is MRSA, the other nasty staph. And of course, there's a lot of talk about chronic Lyme disease as well, and certainly that should definitely get some attention. Lots and lots of viruses. All of the monofamily, or sometimes we call it the herpes family, the monofamily viruses are known to cause an illness. We get a fever, we might have a sore throat or a rash or get sick, and then they go dormant in our system. And if our immune system is doing well, it can keep them dormant. If our immune system has some stress, then sometimes we'll kind of let the lid off the can, so to speak, and they can come out and irritate things. And each one of them maybe has their favorite parts of the body to irritate. But a lot of times, viruses live inside our cells. They're not discriminatory. They can irritate any system in the body. I've seen viral things irritate the brain, irritate the nerves, certainly irritate the thyroid, the heart, the digestive tract, muscles. All of those areas can be inflamed from viruses. Common issues with mold can be sinus issues. Certainly there can be rashes on the skin, but probably most common is that there might be too much yeast in the digestive tract. Now there's always some yeast in the digestive tract, and that's normal, but when there's too much and it kind of throws that good bacteria out of balance, then that can be a concern. And the last is parasites, and yes, they can go in several different places. The gut's the most common, but they can also be in the blood and in the liver. So I should say the most important thing about infections is that they're actually on the radar. A lot of traditional or conventional doctors don't think a lot of chronic illnesses exist, or don't think those chronic infections can actually be chronic. They think they're acute things and they go away. So just keeping your mind open, maybe testing for some of them, would be a reasonable consideration. And then we talked a little bit about stress in the beginning. So I purposely have stress in quotation marks because there's so many different angles to it that I think we really need to keep an open mind about where it's coming from. So certainly your work could be stressful. You could have some emotional stress. You could have a relationship stress or a family stress, a financial stress, a spiritual stress. You could have a physical injury. I mean, twisting your ankle, that's a stressor on your body for sure. Your sleep is could be a huge stressor if you're not getting enough or you're not getting good quality. Nutrient deficiencies. So this is something that we can test for, and I see it very commonly. When someone has a chronic illness, I'd be inclined to say that there isn't anyone where I found that they have no deficiencies. So chronic illnesses are always going to be linked to some sort of, maybe it's going to be a mild vitamin D deficiency, but it's still going to be there to some degree. So we want to give the immune system all the right tools, all the right vitamins, all the right minerals to be able to be well balanced and healthy, and making sure you're at quality levels of your vitamins and minerals is a huge piece of that puzzle. And then adrenal stress is kind of interesting. All of these things can be stressful to the body. So the adrenals might be stressed because you got an injury. The adrenals might be stressed because you have a nutrient deficiency. But it's nice to make sure that your stress chemistry isn't too stressed and that we can actually boost it and help your body to feel better. Sometimes the adrenals like magnesium, they like vitamin C, they like some herbal things like the adaptogenic herbs. They love sleep. They hate caffeine. So there's a few things there that you can be a little bit gentle on them by knowing. So as we're talking about all of these inflammatory triggers, I think it's nice to recap what normal is, because I think sometimes we get stuck in that rut of feeling a particular way and we might not actually realize that might not actually be normal. So I want you to have enough energy, like that little guy right there running away. Your energy level should be good. You should be able to feel like you can exercise often. Your digestion should occur with minimal gas, no pain, no bloating. You shouldn't have any pain anywhere, so no headaches, no cramping with your cycle. You should have no swelling. You should have no skin issues. You should have no redness, no PMS, no mood concerns, no numbness or tingling, no palpitations, no pits or ridges on your nails because that's a nutrient deficiency, and no tooth decay or mouth sores. So all of these are just really common things that might clue us in to that there could be more inflammation in a particular area of the body. So I've spoken to a few people who have had abdominal pain with digestion for years, but because they've lived like that for almost their whole life, they didn't really know that it was abnormal. So I just thought a little bit of a plug here for when the body works perfectly, that we really should be in good, low discomfort and feeling really well. So I wanted to tell you about a girl that I saw a few years ago. She was had a wonderful personality, a vibrant smile, but almost her light had been turned out a little bit. She was dealing with chronic illness for so long that she was wondering if she could keep up with nursing school. She was thinking about changing her career and dropping out of nursing school, and things were looking a little bit dark because her health was so terrible. She had really intense spells of dizziness, headaches, chronic fatigue that she was barely getting to class, and she had strange patterns of numbness. Her regular doctor was considering the diagnosis of MS, and her family thought that there was other things that they could do, and they decided to get more information. So we asked the questions: what are her inflammatory markers? What was going on with her system that we needed to know so that she could be healthy and continue her career? So we looked at several different areas of her of her labs. We teased out a chronic infection. For her, it was a virus. She had some autoimmune markers. She had food allergies, low magnesium, low zinc, adrenal stress, and she had a hormone pattern that looked like polycystic ovaries with a high testosterone. But we gave her the information so that she could go and start her healing process. So as we talked about toxins, she discovered that there was mold in her dorm room, so she was able to switch rooms. Because of her food issues, we decided to take all top 6 inflammatory foods out of her diet, and she decided to cook more in her apartment and eat at the dining hall less in order to sustain that diet. We supported her immune system to fight infections better, and that was a combination of several different herbal things and essential oils. And we also were able to make adjustments in her class schedule so that her stress level was more manageable. And again, she was also stressed because she had a lot of roommates, and they would bring things into the apartment that she couldn't eat. So we also were able to not only get her out of the moldy apartment, but get her into one where she had fewer roommates and roommates that had a similar diet as she did to minimize her stress. So I'm happy to report that she's doing well. She's almost at graduation, and things are definitely looking up, and she is definitely more hopeful about the whole thing. Did I go? I think I went one too far. So I say a lot of this not to scare you, not to be doom and gloom about health, but I think having more information and knowing what we can do for our health is really motivating, because we can change things, we can nudge that body in that right direction to be able to heal. And when we're talking about changes, certainly small steps are fine. And if you feel overwhelmed about a particular thing, take a small step. Let's, just drink more water, walk a little farther, change some products in your house to a green option, eat some more vegetables, eat out a little bit less, reduce your sugar, try a new relaxation practice. Experiment with these, and maybe work on one for the next few weeks and then add another one in after that. There are some people who might be sick enough to need a little bit more intervention than this, but I think the basics always are the basics, and we have to start with those as well. And in general, I just want to instill hope that there is the capacity for wonderful healing in the body. And I want to be bold and say that if you have any chronic illness, I guarantee that there's something in those 4 triggers that will be helpful for you in your journey.